You know what? My life on YouTube has been too easy. As of late, I have only been hated by Chileans after my video on Bergsgarin situation, but today I'm probably going to change that. Cause today I'm going to answer questions that other tennis personalities are scared to answer, from Djokovic's toxic fans to questionable doping cases to fake medical timeouts. Everything is going to be discussed here, so strap in and let's do this. First question comes in from Frankie Dapp and he asks, I like Sinner a lot, but personality wise, do you think he will ultimately lead to the downfall of tennis if he stays number one? Okay, let's start off on a positive note. Tennis is too big and too great of a sport to fully fall off. It will always be a top 5 sport in the world, purely based on the history and tradition. With that being said, I think it's inevitable that tennis will go through a bit of a fall off in the following years, simply because the previous Big 3 era was so huge, it transcended the sport based on the great personalities and great talent at the top of the game. And I fear that this current crop of top players is not on that level, especially the world number one Jannik SInner. Don't get me wrong, he's a great talent, even generational some might say, but unless you are Italian, there is not much reason to get invested in his career. As an outsider, he isn't that fun or charismatic, he isn't relatable, but I guess that's a problem for every single player that plays tennis, and ultimately his style of play is too optimized for great results on the court, which on the surface is the most important thing, but honestly speaking, it significantly impacts his entertainment value. Jannik's progression throughout the years reminds me of an exciting football player that got signed by Pep Guardiola. Everybody who watches football knows what I'm talking about. Promising, exciting player gets bought by the team that is managed by Pep. After the signing, the results are there, but now that exciting player only passes horizontally and kills any fun there is to be had because he doesn't play the sport like someone who loves it. He plays the sport like an optimized robot whose only goal is to win everything. And I'm not blaming Sinner for choosing this path to greatness, it clearly is the correct decision to make, but I would tend to agree with the statement that Sinner's possible dominance could hinder tennis as a sport that the casual viewer would get hooked by. Since we are on the Sinner topic, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, cause multiple people asked a variation of this question, basically, why is Jannik SInner not getting pressed more about his failed doping tests? Yeah, I recorded an answer to this question before the news broke out about the 3-month suspension, so that's not good, but this is my quick opinion on this suspension. I feel like it's kind of bullshit that he basically got to pick when he will serve it, and it's a bit laughable that he will return to the next Grand Slam as if nothing happened. All of this doesn't help the preferential treatment allegations, and at this point, those don't sound like allegations anymore. But I'll still leave the answer that I recorded a day ago in this video just for fun and cause it didn't age that badly, to be honest. Oh, and by the way, Jannik SInner is a hoe for trying to take away the attention from the WTA Doha finals, and that's my biggest takeaway from this. And I'm going to be brutally honest here, at this point I just don't give a fuck about this. If WADA bans him for a year, cool. If they don't, also cool, but I'm not going to sit here and say the same thing over and over and over again. There's a reason why the most outspoken guy on this matter is someone who doesn't actually play and is notorious for being the biggest attention-seeking on the ATP tour. Everybody who had an opinion on this case has voiced it already, and since there hasn't been any new information, there is no reason for those people to talk about this again, unless the conspiracy theory point scoring is your only way to stay in the limelight. Oh, and by the way, don't compare Halep's case to Sinner's case because it just makes you look uninformed. There is no comparison to be made here. And speaking of comparisons between men and women, let's answer this question that comes from Bass of the North. Why are female players paid the same when men's tennis is obviously more popular and financially viable? Obviously, this is a tricky one because to some extent I understand the argument that at the Grand Slams men and women shouldn't be paid the same because the format is different. But there are two main reasons as to why I really don't mind that both tours are paid equally at the big tournaments. Firstly, when the ATP and WTA play the same format, ladies get paid significantly less, and based on the logic presented about the Grand Slam pay, this pay gap is unfair as well, so in my opinion the equal Grand Slam prize money simply evens out the difference. And the second, but probably the most important reason as to why I don't mind equal prize money at the Grand Slams is that I simply don't care about it. It doesn't influence me. I'm a tennis fan. I don't care about the financial side of a major tournament. I care whether the match is fun or not. And honestly speaking, as of late, I'm having more fun watching second weeks of a major on the ladies' side. Ladies' tournaments are always fun, so they fully deserve the money that they are getting. To add, the money is not coming out of my pocket, unless you want to count my 20 euros that I pay in order to watch the matches, so I just don't see a reason for me to care about the financial aspect of the sport. Now that I have gotten WTA fans on my side, let me undo all that progress by answering the next question, which is: would you like to do an ATP WTA player smash or pass? To which my answer was no. Cause even though I want to answer controversial questions, I don't want to come off as some sort of a freak whilst doing that, so I'll take the page out of Nothing Major's podcast book and I'll present to you my top 8 seeds of the most beautiful WTA players and the most handsome ATP Tour players. Cause we treat everyone equally here. Can't wait to be called the first sexiest gay person ever, even though I'm none of the two, but I guess this was what I signed up for when I decided to make this type of video. So let's start off with the ATP Tour. 8th seed is Casper Ruud, and I'm not giving explanations for the picks by the way. 7th seed is Thanasi Kokkinakis, 6th is Stefanos Tsitsipas, 5th Matteo Berrettini, 4th Tommy Paul, 3rd seed is Jack Draper, 2nd seed simply based on his legacy is Grigor Dimitrov, and the 1st seed is someone whose photos I can't even use in my videos without having someone comment on his good looks. It's Artur Fils. Okay, now moving on to the more enjoyable top 8 for me, which is the WTA Tour. In 8th I have Jasmine Paolini, 7th Camila Osorio, 6th Rebecca Shramkova, 5th Elena Rybakina, 4th Anna Kalinskaya, 3rd Sloane Stevens, in 2nd is Donna Vekic, and in 1st it's Eva Lise. Please don't be weird in the comment section down below in relation to this question. Now that I have exposed myself, let's switch gears by talking about something that can ruin a match in an instant, and it's bad umpiring. Multiple people asked me questions about it, so these are my thoughts on the subject. Umpire is a difficult job, there is no doubt about it. There are so many variables that could influence umpire's decision, and to some extent players and fans can excuse some of the mistakes made, but it comes to a point when it feels like umpires start feeling invincible and weirdly prideful about their decisions. So after seeing that empathy quickly disappears. Like, I haven't seen an umpire say, "Oh, my bad, you were right, I'm changing my decision," in my life. And sometimes that ability to admit your mistakes would eliminate the negativity that is directed towards the umpires. But umpires are not able to admit their mistakes, or at least apologize for the mishap, so I don't feel bad for them, to be honest, and I do agree that there should be demotions for umpires that are doing their job badly. To add to that, supervisors are useless, so in my opinion supervisors should be replaced with a video assistant referee whose job would be to watch the whole match and intervene when it's necessary, not only when there is a challenge made. Use it for the 50-50 calls. You see a questionable double bounce situation, inform the umpire about what the camera saw. You see that the electronic line calling has made an obvious mistake, notify the umpire. It's really not that difficult. Players should trust umpires. They should believe that the game is officiated fairly, and in a sport like tennis, where there are not many rules that are up to interpretation, it is embarrassing that the game is not officiated better. As a follow-up to this question, let's talk about the guys who strike fear into umpires, Nick Kyrgios and Sasha Bublik, but the question is not about their relationship with them, it's about their effort that they show on the court. The question about Bublik goes like this: do you think Bublik could fully lock in once he finds something that motivates him to win? And the question about Kyrgios is the one that has been asked about him for his whole career, and it's, would he be a Grand Slam winner if he cared about tennis? When I was younger, I thought that this, well, if I actually cared I would be the best in the world shtick was actually cool, but it's really not. And I'm so over it, to be honest. Like, what possibly can Bublik change in his game after starting to care that would make him a top 10 player, let alone a big tournament winning one? I just don't see it. But to be fair to Bublik, he knows his place in the tennis hierarchy. He doesn't say that he's better than he actually is, which is not something that I can say about Nick Kyrgios. First of all, he clearly cares. Maybe he doesn't do warm-ups like Nadal does, maybe he doesn't care about his nutrition like Novak does, but he still clearly cares. Which is why he went on about how hard he worked to return for the Australian Open, but he chooses when he cares and when he doesn't. Obviously, it's just a coincidence that he cares about tennis when things are going good for him, but then he suddenly stops caring whenever things don't go his way. In my opinion, it's not a question of him caring or not caring, it's a question about him giving up easily, and if you give up or stop caring at the first inconvenience, you simply are not cut out to be a Grand Slam champion. And at their age, I don't see them changing. But to answer the question, I don't think that these guys would be top 5 players even if they suddenly started caring. Now, before we move on to the last question, which will be about Novak Djokovic and his toxic fanbase, it's time for a quickfire round thanks to a comment from Vitek Kozov. Number 1, I think they should make clay courts slower and grass courts faster. I absolutely agree, there should be even more variety between the surfaces that there is right now. But things are clearly going into the direction of making all surfaces relatively similar, which is not something that I can get behind. Number 2, Serena Williams really experienced racism and discrimination in tennis. And that's absolutely true. I mean, those calls in her match against Capriati at the 2004 US Open were 100% racially motivated, because no amount of pure incompetence can make you so bad at your job. And that's obviously not the only example of her being discriminated throughout her career. Number 3, in the last 2 years the level of women's tennis is higher than at any point in the previous 10 years. I feel like nostalgia merchants will not like this answer, but I do agree with this. Put Sabalenka, Swiatek and Goff against any top 3 of your choosing in the last 10 years and they are getting that work. Number 4, court timer is a good idea. Players who delay the game deserve time violations. Having the timer is a good idea for sure. It's easier for players, fans and refs to understand how much time they're taking on serve. But the problem with those timers is that when the time violation gets given, there is always an argument following that, which is annoying, but I don't know how we could fix the problem, so in the end I guess you are not wrong. And number 5, there should be a timer on every next serve after a let call, and that is something that I again agree with 100%. The biggest offender of this bending of the rules situation is without a doubt Novak Djokovic. The guy takes a minute to serve again after a let, and that shouldn't happen, which is why such timer would be very handy in tennis. And speaking of Novak, let's talk about the final controversial topic, which is the Novak fanpage has some of the most toxic fans online, and it's unbelievable that Novak hasn't commented on it. Also, to add to that, audiences don't have to cheer in equal amounts for both players. This is a great way to end this video, because I know that I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this answer, but these 2 comments are absolutely true. Novak Djokovic comes off as a hypocrite whenever he condemns crowds for their bad behavior, when at the same time he shows support, enables and borderline glorifies the absolute nutcases that he has in his fanbase. There is always an excuse to be made that he doesn't even know about those bad apples in the Nole fan, but that's simply not true. He follows them on social media, shows love to them for supporting him, when in reality most of the supporting is done by attacking other players. Everybody knows what happens in the Nole fan circles. It's no secret, players have called them toxic. The tennis fans know that they are toxic, and it correlates to him not being supported when he is on the court, and those are simply the consequences of his own and his fanbase's actions. Just because you're the greatest of all time, it doesn't make you exempt to any booing. Just because you have changed in the last few years, it doesn't make people forget about 10 years prior to that, and on the court everybody is equal. And fans can decide who they want to cheer for without feeling bad or being called names for choosing one over the other. So these are my opinions on some of the most controversial discussion topics in tennis. Did I piss you off during this video? Let me know in the comment section down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take it easy, my friend.